Father God, please bless me in this preaching and this speaking. Forgive me for my sins, whether I know that I commit them or not. And please let you be glorified in addition to the honor I want to show my father and mother. And keep the evil one, the hater, the liar, the thief, and the destroyer away from this process. Amen. Okay, God bless. This is Mark Anthony DiBello. It's the end of the month, or actually the beginning of the month, June 1st, 2025. I apologize for the poor lighting in this video, which is, again, sort of a life update, I think about the third in a row. Remembering the life of my daddy, who died on Easter Sunday, March 31, 2024. And I recorded what I called the life update in on March 31st, 2025, and right around when Easter Sunday was of this year. I don't know if I'm going to do this as a regular thing, but I'm going to try to limit it to just giving updates. It's actually the third time I've recorded this message. A couple technical issues on the other two. So I'm going to try to keep it to an hour, although I could speak at length about certainly my daddy's life and even my mom's and my own life, but trying to center it around the persecution and prosecution against my daddy and me, and in many ways involved the life of my mom, although she's been deceased October 17th, 1982. So I formulated some of these thoughts over the last few days, and I'll try to share them. Again, everything I say is the truth, not my version. It'll be perfectly 90% at least accurate. I try to be 100%, but there are some things I just don't know, so I'll speak to that, and I'll put in some preaching and maybe some politics because it seems to apply. But with regards to the first preaching note, I'll say, remember, the truth is basically two things. It's what God thinks, okay, his mindset, and what actually happens, what actually is. I'm speaking to you, I'm showing you 8 fingers and 2 thumbs. That's the truth. If I were to lie, I could make up all sorts of different combinations or numbers. And the truth is absolute, it's singular. Lies are infinite. Okay, and the devil, remember, he's a hater, he's a liar, he's a thief, and he's a destroyer. He seeks death. God, Father God, is the God of love, life, joy, and peace. And the commandment actually says, honor thy father and mother. Father first, because there's a godly order. The male first, then the female second. And the reason we honor our earthly fathers is because it teaches us to honor our heavenly Father, Father God. So I'm trying to do that. Now, I've been criminally falsely accused. I've been falsely imprisoned, jailed, attacked, threatened. I'll get to that. Some developments just happened the other day with regards to that. And it's not the way it should be. Certainly, it meant more to me while my daddy was alive. He was my heart. He was my God on this earth. I don't exist if it wasn't for him. He was my hero, my idol, my mentor. He was my dad. He taught me about God and to love him and my mom and others, and certainly the animal kingdom. And I mean, I can't begin to tell you our relationship. And I'll just tell you again the story real quick. A little backstory. He was born the youngest of 6 children to immigrant Italian parents. His grandpa, my grandpa, his father, worked hard work, as a janitor, as a laborer in a paper mill in Mechanicsville, New York, to provide for his family here in the new land. My mom, from her side, she was the 12th, Dorothy, she was the 12th of 13 kids, immigrant, at least one of them, Polish parents, farm type, had a farmer, I guess, had some other, another job, according to one of my aunts. But, these are just real people. And my daddy, met my mom. He was a promoter, worked with, how many people can say they worked with Elvis and the Colonel, the Beatles, Johnny Cash, Frank Sinatra, and others? My mommy worked at the phone company. They met, married, I think April something, I want to say maybe 11th, 1959. I just don't have the article in front of me, as I always try to look at it. And I was their firstborn child, December 18th, 1960. Not only was I born the most blessed, which means the godliest, the most intelligent, the most creative, the most, in our family's case, athletic, the strongest, I mean, but very much in the Italian image of my dad. And 5 of the children to come within about 10 years, there were 8 total, were in the Italian image, and 3 more in the Polish image, which would have been his second-born child, Joseph, Tony, Julie, I'm sorry, and Tony, or Tony and Julie in that order. So they're a different type, not as blessed with a lot of the things that my father had. And my parents in some ways were opposites. But anyway, we grew up, had a real blessed life, as I mentioned before. My dad became a millionaire, multiple automobiles, businesses, sound mind, intelligent, creative, caring, comedic, charismatic. My mom, many of the same qualities. And she dies October 17th, 1982. Now, before my mom died of pancreatic cancer, which was at that point the worst day of my life, and between that day and the day my dad died, there will always be the worst days. I'll die. When I die, that'll be the 3rd worst day. It's just that way. But I had some video of this curly-haired woman, it looked like, stalking, I guess, scoping out my dad, who was the most famous guy in our town because of his work in publishing and his... I'm looking at my watch because, again, I'm going to try to keep this to just 1 hour. And, this was about 4 years before my mom died, maybe 78, 79, in that area. And my dad was wealthy, self-made, earned it all on his own. With the help of my mom, she actually worked for my dad and then raised the kids, and was the best mom, and he was the best dad you could possibly imagine. My dad was incredibly hardworking. I don't even know how he found the time to be a good father to us, but gave us everything, gave me everything, exposure to everything. We had tennis court, we had a pool, we had horses, we had a go-kart track, around the house. We made a golf course around the house. I mean, we had every kind of vehicle you can imagine: dune buggies, snowmobiles, bicycles, motorcycles, cars, you name it. And just to expose us to everything with regards to sports and show business, even because my daddy had his, a small career in show business in a way, and a lot of blessed gifts that were given to me. So I'm here to carry them on for my dad and to honor my mom. You can look on my social media, and I recently posted a video I thought really came out well called Bingo City. I did one from my time at the University of Miami. I just posted some things with regards to these updates I'm giving on this unjust, prejudicial, corrupt, just devastatingly deadly to my dad, ungodly misuse of him, his funds, his finances, his life, his emotions, his physical being, all by one person in particular and her supporters, her own children, and even my father's other children who betrayed him, not me. I wasn't going to betray my dad no matter what. He gave me life. I owed him my life. All that him and my mom had to go through to raise me as a little baby, I would have been willing to do for my dad, even to something you might say like changing diapers. Not that my dad ever needed that done, but I've given my dad a bath before when he was, in his aging years, and I would do it every day if I needed to. So, again, after my mom dies, I had this video surfaced, and it had to be spiritual because I never noticed it before. I don't know why it popped up. Now, I might be incorrect. That might not be this person with this ugly-looking, stringy, wiry hair. But the story, again, quickly goes, my dad is widowed. He goes into Howard Johnson's where he had an account, has a nice Cadillac, got a new one every year, nice suit, handsome man. He's about 50, looks good for his age. I know I'm kind of concealed here, but if you look at me, I don't think I look my age. That's a genetic thing I got from my dad. So I'm just going to power this up a little bit. I think, okay. So he goes into Howard Johnson, and I knew the waitress, my dad did. There's a woman there who asked about my father, and according to my dad, he has testimony, And again, I have everything with God as my witness. It's the truth. I'll put my hand on a Bible. I'll swear to it in court. I have evidence, recordings. I mean, I'm not making any of this up. The person wants to meet what they call the wealthy widower. Now, this person's married, this woman. She's about 29, I guess has 4 kids, married to a guy named Joseph Murphy, who has an overhead door company. And she goes to my father under false pretenses, my dad said, and wants to hold a Bible study in his office. Now, that's a heck of a place to hold a Bible study. Now, I've known this woman 30-plus years. This is the least Christian person I've ever met. And so having said that, according to my dad, she duplicitously dupes him to get into his office. Now, a short time after, my father tells me, alleges, because I have a hard time finding the evidence of it, not that it doesn't exist, it's just this guy, this Joseph Murphy, has seemed to vanish, which I know there's cancel culture, I know there's cover-ups, I know the power and control, not in an intelligent way, because this person was not intelligent, not attractive, not creative, not entrepreneurial, but did, as my father said, the word he used the words he used were cunning and crafty. She knew how to get things from men, use men, and do things with money. So she gets into my father's office, and again, my father says to me that this person, a short time after she was with my dad, takes out excessive, and the life insurance policy guy, salesman, I guess, said, why do you need so many policies for her and her husband, and I guess family? He's like, you're a younger woman, your husband's a younger guy. And according to my dad, she said to the insurance man, well, my husband plays with guns, so I think I should have extra life insurance. Now, according to my dad, that this man, Joseph Murphy, was shot to death while alone with this woman, who for now I'm, nameless, but it's not hard to find out her name. I don't know why I'm keeping her nameless, because I'll get to this court situation, but this man dies of a supposed accident while alone with this woman in the kitchen from a gunshot wound. Now, my father distinctly remembers all the details, because he said to me at some point she confessed, and she also held it over him, and he saw some evidence of it. And not only that, but before that, how, this woman was in a business deal with her sister with some guy in California. They felt the guy ripped them off or whatever, and apparently the guy had an accidental fall off a 9th-story building in California. And my father swears on his grave that that's true, that he had evidence of it. She discarded some of the evidence, hid some of the evidence, disposed of the evidence. He saw it. He said, and I have multiple recordings of him telling me the story. Mark, you have to believe me. My life depends on it. And again, I can't find much on it. He said it was back, 30 years ago or whatever in California before she met. But anyways, this woman, and that was her sister, who my father said is also a very evil, disgusting person, human being. And, and she writes, well, I get to what she wrote. But anyway, having said that, my dad, the man dies, and the woman said to my father she did it to clear a path to get to my dad. So now this woman is a widow, and foolishly, because his second in command at his business, which was now becoming a publicly held company, Hospital Newspapers Group, was his second-born son, Joseph. And now Joseph's got an atheist. This guy's got no godly morals or ethics. He's 10% of the time. You often hear me say 90-10. 10% of the time, he's a good person. He's got some goodness in him. He's helped me. He's tried to help his father. But 90% he has, an atheistic way, which means he thinks he's God. He's got no standard of what God is like. He doesn't know God's thoughts, doesn't know God's laws, doesn't know the 10 Commandments. So what you essentially do, and every atheist, every person who doesn't believe in God, you believe you're God. Your mind is what you think dictates the way of the world and the universe and people and the spirit and such. But that's not the case. And this Joseph, his God, really becomes money, power, and control, which is exactly the same gods of this person that was with my father. So Joey had always bonded with that woman. Now, maybe she had something over Joey. Maybe they had a relationship. I mean, I don't know that, but I don't put anything past her. And second to her, I don't put anything past Joey. But either way, Joey, and I just think because he's always misjudged things, he's always misjudged me, he has no godly center, was just gaslighted and duped, while my father was being the same and groomed, and even my father brainwashed. And of course, that was this woman's MO from the beginning. And that was pretty obvious, and I told the story, and I'll tell it briefly. When, after my father ultimately said he made the biggest mistake in his life of marrying this woman, and I never went to the wedding, and I'll get to that because that means I never kissed a woman on the cheek, I never shook her hand, I never even touched this woman, and I'll get to why I'm saying that. I never even would hit her by accident or go close to her, accidentally rub into her, because I know how demons jump bodies. That's kind of how they do. And I just know she's Black Death. She's a Black Widow. This woman is just evil personified. And my dad said the same thing in multiple recordings. So anyway, having said that, he makes the biggest mistake of his life, he says, and he marries her. So one day I go up to the house, and my car's in the shop, I guess, and she's standing in the kitchen right next to me, and my dad's going through the dining room, which goes upstairs to his bedroom. And I said to him, I said, Dad, can I please borrow something to drive? He said, sure, son. Take the keys to the red truck. They're right there on the kitchen table. And she's standing right there. I take the keys to whatever truck he's talking about. I go down to the apple tree, which was a landmark spot on his property, nice expansive property, where he always parked, because we had extra vehicles, they always filled up the driveway. And there's two red trucks. One is the new truck for backyard barns, which was this, a pickup we used to make deliveries of these storage units, and the keys didn't fit that truck. The other truck was this beat up, dilapidated, stick shift, rusted out with this piping in the back red truck. I'm like, I don't know where my father got this truck, but he's always getting different vehicles, and this must be the one he wants me to borrow because that's the one the keys went to. So I take the truck, I go out at night, I stay out overnight, I call him up. Now listen to this, I call him up the next day. Now this woman has a habit of censoring, eavesdropping, plotting all the time, damage and destruction all the time, just to make sure she can profit as much as humanly possible. So either my dad told her, or she eavesdropped, or she got it out of him. Usually it was she got it out of him. She manipulated and did some wordplay on him to try to get information, or she censored and eavesdropped, or lastly, he just volunteered it. But back then, his mind was more in control, and he was less groomed and brainwashed, and less, coerced and in fear for his life. So he wasn't more, likely to just give that up. But either way, she found out, because as I'm driving back, the police in East Greenbush pull me over. And there's two cops, one named Haskins, who was nicknamed Haskins. I don't know if I nicknamed him that. I think I did, but other people in town called him that because that's the kind of cop he was. He'd harass people, and eventually he was released from the force for doing just that. And the other cop with him was this guy named Mayana, who I knew, who played football with my brother a year younger, and he was one of these bully tough guys who kind of hid behind the badge. But the dynamic that I thought was unique was how Haskins had dominance over Mayano. So that's how evil this Haskins guy was. And this was the day before dash cams. So they both got their guns to my head. They're threatening me, mocking me. We've been wanting to kill you, flinching, you're dead. We're arresting you. They throw me in the back of the car, and I ask, why? Why am I being arrested? A Donna DiBello called to report that Mark DiBello stole a truck from his father's property. That could not be a bigger lie. Now, here's a story, preaching principle online. I've mentioned the kinds of lies in the other messages, but there's another kind of lie, the kind of lie where a person is just wrong about something. If I say that sign over my head here says, that's not 47, that's 44, and I go to a court, or I go to somebody and I swear on the Bible, that sign says 44. No, I'm wrong. See, I may not be purposely lying. I'm being deceived, though, by the devil, the father of lies. That's the first thing the Bible says about him, beyond being the destroyer, and I'm just wrong. So that's, in a sense, being deceived, and it's a lie. But now, knowing this person, they didn't get it wrong. They just lied. Okay, but either way, it's not something you call the police about, to have somebody imprisoned for 6 days in a steel cage like I was. And then upon my release, I go ask the person, do you want to apologize, this Donna, for what you did? And here, and I won't use the word, but she did, no. I'm not effing apologizing to you. You and your father need to know I control all of this now. And one day I will own all of this. And if you and him don't come in line now, I'll never get you in order. And I'm going to own all this one day, and I'll effing do it again. Meaning I'll falsely arrest you. That's what she said. Now me, excuse me, I'm just adjusting. Me, I turn, with my Christian ethic, I turn the other cheek, and I take one for the team, so to speak. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'll have a heck of a story to tell one day. So when I do tell the story years later, you would think that anybody who knew that person and loved my father and me would defend us, would could be critical of that person, would be, show condemnation toward that person, rebuke. I mean, how do you side with that person? How do you defend that person? How do you believe that person? Somebody who would do that and say such a thing. Now, in fact, she doubled down on it because, and I'll tell you this story real quick. I went back to her, I don't know, had to be 4 or 5 years later when I had my born-again experience, March 3rd. I had my exorcism, let's say March 3rd, 1991, which is March 3rd or 5th, which is a monumental day because I haven't had aspirin since then. I haven't drank. I never did cigarettes. I haven't done a single drug. I mean, nothing. I mean, and I'm in constant pain, not now, chronic emotional pain, but I had tumors. I've had broken bones, a broken jaw, root canals, nothing. No medication, painkiller, nothing since then, thank God. Okay, now, I also, I think, went for a day to this, 12-step program. Sorry, checking the clock. And they said, one of these steps is making amends. I went for 1 day. So I go back to this woman, Don, to try to make amends. Not only does she not apologize, now she's squatting. I remember exactly where it was. In our father's home, and I'll just go back to a quick story. When my mom was alive, our house was on fire. And we were in the living room watching the New Orleans Saints against the LA Rams at the time. And I saw smoke coming out of the, one of the vents on the ground. I told my daddy, he went to find the fire. He told Lisa to call the fire department. Lisa, his daughter's got to go up and change or something while the house is burning. I'm like, the smoke is coming from the cellar, and there's a bathroom right above the cellar steps. So I run, I hurdle over, it was cold, it was in winter, it was, I think, December. I hurdle over this, a white aluminum fence. I go to the neighbors. I tell them to call the fire department. And the house is burning down. Now, and I remember my mom crying on my shoulder in the station wagon, how sad she was. She loved that house. And so did, I. And my dad freaking out because he thinks I'm burning to death in the house. He didn't know where I was. He didn't see me come back. So he's struggling with trying to go into the burning house and save my life. So anyway, that's a true story, and that's how, my father was always worried about fire. And I'll get to part of why I mentioned that story. So in that bathroom, and I'll tell you something else about this bathroom before I tell you what this woman did, is where my father, I remember, washed my mouth out with soap, I think for using the word shit. Excuse me for my language, but it's something my father, periodically used that word. We never used the F word. He never used the F word in my house, and I don't think I heard my mother ever swear. She never even said the S word, okay? And I apologize for saying that word, but it's not really a dirty word, I guess. It's dirty, play on words, pun intended, I guess. But anyway, so this woman's squatting down in that bathroom, and I appealed to her. She said, F no, I effing do it again. I told you once, I'll tell you again, I'm going to own all of this. You and your father do not have control. F you, I'm effing going, I'm effing in charge. I'm the dominant, not your dad, not you, and F you, get out of this bathroom. I'm like, you got to be kidding. That's how you talk to somebody who's trying to, and why should I go back to this person to apologize? But that's the nature of this person. So some of the other reasons I mentioned that story is that just shows you how their relationship is going. Because as, when she first got with him, she kicked all my, father's kids out of the house. Her kids came in. They did marijuana. They smoked things we never did in the house. And one of the things I didn't mention in one of the last messages was that they would change the locks to the doors, and when my dad couldn't even get in the rooms of his own children, not her children, but any children, but they were all out by then. Even if he wanted to check the fire alarms, he wanted to know where the marijuana smoke was coming from. But that's the disrespect that this woman and her kids had for my father, that they would change the locks in his own house that he generously let them live in. And they were just, these are not good people, these children. And this certainly, with their leader, their mother. So eventually this goes on. Now, part of the reason I'm mentioning that, to give an update, is, my father had called me, I don't know, and I knew she was coercing him and grooming him and gaslighting him and, a slow form of abuse that my father called love bombing. She did it as soon as she met him. And I don't know where he got that term, but it's a common term you can look up in abuse cases. It's a fake sort of love, or, it's just you totally love money, you don't love the person. And when my father found that out in later years, and that this emotional abuse, and the deterioration, not because he had Alzheimer's or dementia. And if you look at my Facebook, I just posted a message of him, joyfully reporting how he didn't have Alzheimer's, and he never did, because the key, again, is that Alzheimer's progressively gets worse year to year. My father's mental situation never got worse. He just stayed under the same emotional strain and control and brainwashing and gaslighting, and was pressured by her. All sorts of ways I heard her threaten him, and I'm with God as my witness. Now I'm going to say some of the phone calls I overheard. I already played one of them, and I know I'm jumping around here in this scenario, but to give an update, and I'll jump back a step. So he didn't have Alzheimer's, but of course she has that put on the death certificate. His death was suspicious. He was obviously suffered, an AI report said, elder abuse and neglect. A Korean War veteran didn't deserve to die that way. Okay, he under suspicious circumstances, alone with her on a Saturday. Okay, where they always fought because she was there. Well, I already told all that story. So anyway, the reason I'm again mentioning this is because he didn't have Alzheimer's. There's no way. Okay, he remembered things in detail from 70 years earlier, 75 years earlier, to things from the day before to what he had for dinner that day. He was just groomed, gaslighted, and brainwashed in a form of abuse called prospecticide. And she did the same thing, always constantly trying to berate him and tell him he had Alzheimer's so she could have a narrative and a way to collect money and say she was needed. She even put in the protection order against me, saying, I'm the caretaker and Mark wants his father to divorce me. No, Mark's father just wanted him to leave in peace and safety. My father wanted to divorce, which of course set her off because she would lose out on belongings, money, possessions, and benefits, from veteran benefits to life insurance benefits after my father died if they were divorced. So at any circumstance, she did what she did before, and she promised she would do. She had me falsely arrested. She filled out a protection order, didn't tell my father, didn't tell me. It was totally fraudulent. Nothing in it was true. Lied about it. First checkbox, Mark's a dangerous threat to me. Now that's why I go back to this marriage story. I've seen the person 5 times in 10 years, and every time I saw the person, she came storming in to protect her office and protect the financial records in her office. Okay? I didn't have interaction with her. I just simply wanted to see my daddy. She threatened him. She threatened my daddy. She threatened me, and that's what she did. But she, and 5 times I've seen the person in 10 years. Like I said, didn't even hurt her, bump into her accidentally. And I'm a threat, and I'm a threat to my dad. Do you know how insulting and offensive it is to be lied like that? And again, all the fraudulent stuff thereafter, but I already mentioned a lot of that. So I'll try to move forward. So that's the kind of, that's what this person was doing. Obviously, and my dad was losing all of his things, his belongings, his possessions, his property, his house, his automobiles. She's spending all the money because according to my dad, here's what would happen. Like he sold the plot up on his property, one of the plots. I said, Dad, a house divided against itself can't stand. I know if you give her that money when he trusted her with it. Now he sold one of the plots. He could have sold it for $100,000. He was in, he needed the money. He was desperate. He sold it for like 40, and he ended up selling like 3 of them. And with the 40, he would give it to her. Now her, version of accounting was this: she would put most of it to the side, hide it, so she could have it for when my father died. She was investing in him being dead and her living a comfortable lifestyle after she was gone, not reinvesting it properly or giving it to my dad. And again, he ended up breaking off all the, 3 plots on the property. He tried to do a 4th, and that didn't work. It's actually, there's some paperwork on the internet about that failing in, whatever that town appeasement, whatever that section of the town justice, or courts handle that. And ended up actually breaking up the rooms upstairs and turning it into an apartment. Okay, now I tried to tell my dad to turn it into an Airbnb and to get NYRA, and I was working with the presidents of NYRA, David Zetkin and this Mr. O'Rourke, to have, a breeding place for the thing so my dad could still live there. But no, she wanted the property sold. She wanted the money. She wanted to live closer to her kids. Selfish, greedy, just that's the thing. That's what she was all about. Just used and abused my dad, because it's all about his money. And and when he contacted me later on, and I know I'm jumping around, but he, how would you like, and I remember this as like a youth, how would you like it? You go to somebody, you meet a girl, she wants to meet you, you go over, she's like, I want to go to your parents' house, and she goes to the parents' house, and the next thing you know, you find out she's got a crush on your brother or something. Or she wants to just, get in with the fam because, the father owns an ice cream parlor and she likes ice cream. But it's not really love for the guy, or she likes the guy she's, acting like she wants to be with. I mean, you know how heartbreaking that is? And that's what happened to my daddy. He found that out. And he, said she was getting in cars with other men. Her and her sister, she'd go on vacation. I know she was on vacation all the time. His house that she was the house she had, which she paid for according to my dad in cash, had the only automobile, controlled everything, had all the possessions, made sure she followed this order so my dad couldn't give away his precious jukebox and slot machine that he loved. I even got a storage unit for it, had to pay for that, never was able to get those belongings. She threatened, that's when she filed this protection order. My dad said, and I put this up, there was this thing called citicism where he's like, well, Mark, at least I can get half my stuff back if I leave her. That never panned out. None of it panned out because she had to make sure he died not leaving her and divorcing her so she could get everything. And again, beside this corrupt protection order, which I never got to, fully defend myself or reverse, because again, they're in woke, Democrat, female-run New York. The judge, if you look at this judge, Elizabeth Walsh, woke Democrat, same age as the petitioner, looks like that, unattractive judge in Minnesota that was recently, I guess arrested from the Trump administration for harboring an illegal alien, that kind of look, also had a conflict of interest. I guess, the only jobs this Donna person had was, before she met my dad, Emma Willard, and this judge went to Emma Willard at the same time, but Donna didn't last that long. Her next job was, of course, working for my dad, being a secretary, and that's how she even gets Social Security. So she owes my finances that way to my dad. She was collecting his Social Security. You heard the video I put up on the recently released Bingo City with the transcript, where she's making sure she gets that money. My father can't even get $5 to go to to buy ice cream, and she wants to make sure she gets that money. Berating him, disrespecting him, the indignity of it all. And again, I have told you, I have about 6 messages I overheard and recorded like that. So anyway, having said that, and I know I'm jumping around, so I'll go back to the house thing, I guess. Well, I'll go to these 6 messages. Because I am supposed to just give updates. And I do want to update something about, I mentioned in the last message about the stadium. Because Joseph, he supported Donna, and so did, primarily Joseph, Lisa, and Amy. And the reason I know that is, while my father, when the abuse became physical, and my father, she was, flailing knives at him, I heard her do that. One of the calls that really got this started, because I said to him, I said, Dad, I know you want, I didn't want to sell the house, but he had no choice. She was coercing and controlling him in the situation and spending all the money. And then, like I said, she put that money to the side. And I remember even going to my house, my father's house, and there was like 200 bottles of this like diet powder or something. So it was obviously another failed business that she wanted him to get into that lost money, because everything, he did with her lost their money. And I mentioned, her job was Emma Willard. Then she worked at a church, I guess, as a clerk. She either got fired or quit. That's not good, right? Getting quit or quitting or getting fired from a church. And then this babysitting thing, and then maybe a short time, a week or two with DoorDash. But her money was mostly just off of what was saved from my, not saved, sequestered away from my dad. And my dad even said that he saw records of it, swears on the Bible, she had over at least $1 million stowed away, and she stood to make a small fortune, according to him, upon his death from his veteran benefits and benefits from this and that. And of course, she was getting his Social Security. He even told me, which I did now do it, I called Social Security. I don't know if they're going to follow up, because again, I mentioned, what's going on in New York with the woke Democrat, that judge, and you got that Letitia Minority James, what she did to President Trump, that Alvin Bragg, the governor, Kathy Hochul. Everybody I've come across in that family court is just terribly incompetent or corrupt. I just called the other day about something. The woman said, I got to talk to my supervisor. Hang on, I'll be back in a couple minutes. 5 minutes later, boom, I hear the phone hang up. It's always something like that. It was like that for 3 years while my dad's life is at stake. But that's the evil corruption and even the spirit behind how Satan, I knew, was going to want to see my dad like Jesus Christ died, right? On Holy Saturday, Good Friday, I'm sorry. Wanted my, before he rose again, purportedly on Easter, whether you're a Christian or not. But I knew the devil was going to attack my dad around that time. I knew it. 2 months earlier, I warned him. I begged him. And he even said to me, Mark, if anybody, because he left me a message, and I'm saying to myself, I got to get a message to my dad. I'll post it. Because, see, part of the protection order was Mark reporting this crime, this abuse, trying to help and save his father and liberate him, is harassment. See, my First Amendment rights, forget about that. Doing the right, godly thing, forget about that. So when I got that message from my dad, I tried to put out the message, and he even said in a message to me, he goes, Mark, if anybody turns their back on me and leaves me alone and unwatched, I will die under her hand. And sure enough, that's how he died. He died alone with her because they argued on Saturdays and Sundays. He wanted to play the horses on Saturday or football on Sunday. She disallowed him from doing anything he wanted or having the money, was always trying to push this, Alzheimer's narrative. I told you about his birthdays, 89th and 90th. I wrote it. Look at my post. He didn't get to have a party or celebrate. She's, once 89th, he's getting a protection order because she's roughing up. I heard it. I put up that message, I think, or at least put it on Bingo City. And then on the 90th, she's taking him to making him take a bus to the doctors to get another Alzheimer's test. Okay, so I've got maybe 25 minutes, so I'll try to speed it up here. And again, I apologize. I'm going fast and bouncing around, but I just got to get some of these things out. And then I'll get back to the stadium. I know I'm bouncing around. Okay, so when my daddy contacted me, and the abuse had become physical, and he just simply wanted to leave. That's when all this went down with this divorce stuff. And you got to isolate. You got to make the victim codependent. Anybody who tries to save him, doesn't matter. What the consequences are to me. Now, I had worked. One of the consequences, I don't want to make this about me, is I worked 3 years to meet the owner, and I did, of the Florida Panthers, Mr. Vince Viola, a Marine, veteran and a very wealthy man, to get a job doing analytics with the Panthers. And I did. It spent 25 years after meeting Al Davis, the owner of the Raiders, to get his son doing a job with his son, the owner of the Vegas Raiders, to do analytics. But of course, the first thing an HR department checks, because I met with the president, Sandra Douglas of the Raiders, is, do you have a protection order? Because a lot of women in these organizations, that's the thing they worry most about. And sure enough, I've got this protection order from this person. Doesn't care whose professional life they destroy, whose ministerial life they destroy, whose life they destroy, like my dear daddy, a Korean war veteran who was nothing but godly, good, and generous. And nobody there to defend them. And these children, Lisa, Amy, and Joey, defending her. Now, I'll go back to that story, something about that story, which I don't know if I aired or not. So getting along with Joseph, who's a multimillionaire, okay, and he is usually, did some good with me with his money. He gave me some opportunities, and I tried to work for them, and I appreciate that. But he totally went ungodly, especially after one email. So the situation is, my father wants to play the sport. Wants to play sports. He can't get any money. I said, Dad, well, all the sports are legal now. And I tried to tell Joey the same thing. And I even told Joey once. I said to my father and him, I said, go to hell. Now I don't say that to the person. I say it to the spirit in them, because I waited 20 years to get Joey and my father, because they wouldn't do it. I couldn't get them all in line. They needed Brad to develop production company. I said, at least let's do sports together, Papa. But Joey, he's prideful, self-centered, most prideful person you'll ever meet. He wants to do his own thing. So I still said, Joe, everybody's going to work best if we all work together. So he didn't want to do that. But I finally started getting, connected with him. And the closest I was to him was when sports became legal throughout the United States. And they would give you sign-up bonuses. You put down $1,000, you get a $1,000 free bet. Now, I told my dad, I said, Dad, here's what I'll do. You give me your Social Security number. And he gave it to me anyway. He wanted to give it to me because he wanted to get checked, because he wasn't getting the benefits. And if he did get it, it'd go to the mailbox, she would take it. He couldn't use the money. If it was going directly into his bank account, she'd go to the bank, deceive the teller, try to, put her name on the account, do whatever, and she'd get that money. So he couldn't get that. So he was constantly having me, have it sent different different venues, whether it's the mailbox or the bank directly. And again, he wanted me to sign up for these sports accounts, just like she signed him up for DraftKings in New York. I signed him up. Now, I traveled to, I think, 12 different states, slept on the airport because I couldn't really afford the hotel rooms. I put up the money. I put up the $1,000 of my life savings. We got the free bet. I picked the team. I didn't let my dad, because he lost sort of his ability to pick well. He was under such stress and pressure from her. And then I would send him half the winnings. So it was a win-win for him and me. The problem was she took all the money. I sent it to him, and I even told the story. I sent him one time, he hit for 1,000. I kept 5. I think it was in Iowa or somewhere. I sent him 5. He puts it in his Bible. She goes in his Bible and takes it out of his Bible. And then the old, her old catch-all would, she'd get, she'd intercept the check in the mail, or she'd go up to him when he got the money and was finally happy to hold on to the money, even up to $1,000. And she'd say, you got to give me that money. Don't forget, you got Alzheimer's. You'll forget where you put that money. Lying to a Korean War veteran, a man who, and the work that I did just to send him that money, I think I sent him $5,000. Now, what she wrote in the protection order was that Mark is scamming his father. Well, really, I'm scamming my father by signing him up to legal accounts. He gave me a Social Security number. She said I stole it. And like I said, you heard in this Bingo City, I think, my father even said she was collecting. Now, again, I'm not accusing this person of this. I don't want any violence to come against this person. I'm only saying, what my dad told me, and I called Social Security, so I don't know if they're going to do anything. But again, that's a national thing, and President Trump's in the administration now, so hopefully that stuff gets straightened out. But my father said she was even collecting Social Security benefits from her dead husband. Now, I know my dad's benefits are no longer being collected. She got a final payment, Social Security, but again, she calls me a scammer, but she didn't send back the money I sent my dad. She didn't say that was a problem. She kept that money. She had no problem doing that. And again, I didn't scam anybody. But what she does is she puts that email out to the three converts of her the most, Joey, Amy, and Lisa. And Joey sent back an email, and he had been saying this for 30 years. Mark, you scumbag, scamming, this and that. You're all blocked off. Leave me alone. I want no part of what you're doing. And all the while, my dad is suffering, and he's begging to get help. And he's like, Mark, you got to even tell Joey. And I put this at the end of Bingo City. You got to tell Joey. He thinks Donna walks on water. I don't get the money. Now, Joey might have sent $5,000 up to $25,000, $30,000, or at least multiple $5,000 checks. That was Joe's sort of standard amount. And Joe, and to his credit, he worked hard, but he collects money. That's what he does. He yells at people all day long, money, money, money. And now he has a company of like 200 people that do the same thing. I mean, I give him credit for that, but he's not a godly person. He's not a good person, and he's victimized me. He's falsely accused me. I've even said he's like the second most evil person to this Donna person. I mean, it's unbelievable, the false accusation. So again, I'm falsely accused, and my relationship with him becomes completely severed, and my dad's suffering. And the checks go to my dad, but he doesn't get them. Of course, she puts the money away in that private account, and my dad even said, and I saw this, accidentally, the bank sent me, a bank report. She said I hacked into the bank account. I don't know how, I don't even know how to get email sometimes to these banks. I don't know how to hack into a bank account, but she's so paranoid, and all that money she's putting away for the day when my daddy dies, not putting him in a house where he wants to live, in a city where he wants to live. He had to rent in East Greenbush. She wanted to be closer to her family. She moves to Schenectady in a house my dad said she buys in cash, takes away his automobile. He hates Schenectady. There's nothing there. She doesn't get him a place, a mansion with the money where he could, live out his final days. She doesn't let him go free where he can live with me, where I made $41,000 in one day, prayerfully after being jailed, where I would spend it all on my father. I sent it to him, much of it to him anyway. I made plane trips. I put down payments. I mean, I'm getting arrested by this liar, this person. And again, Joe's sending money, and he's not getting it. He wants to get Stewart's root beer. She's buying generic Price Chopper brand root beer. He can't even get the root beer she likes. Now, I know how sick she is with money. I remember, I was telling a story about my father selling the property. I went to have a garage sale in the final days the property existed. And I won't get into this whole story because it's very big and it's very long. But I said, Papa, I'll give you half of everything we make. Obviously, and I was selling some of my own stuff. I said, Dad, we got to do something to save the house, at least save some of these belongings. I sold the first thing for $10. Actually, one of his nieces, a woman named Jane, was there, and it was a picture, I think, of Lucy Arnaz and Desi Arnaz, and it kind of reminded her of my father and dad. She kind of winked at me a little bit. And I held out, like I took the 10, and it was I sold the thing for 10, I think it was 2 5. I held out the 5 to give to my dad just in principle, just to bless the proceeding. This Donna comes running out of the kitchen. I never saw, swings open the kitchen door so fast, the outside door, runs, grabs the money out of my hand. That's mine. Everything here is mine. He doesn't get anything without it being mine. I said, Dad, is that how she is? You got to be kidding. I never saw anybody grab $5 so fast. I actually left at the end of the garage sale. I won't get to the whole story. I left an envelope for my dad with the note in it in the storage shed where my stuff still remained, leaving the money for him. He never got it. She went in there and took it. That money wasn't earmarked for it. It was for him. But that's what this person did. And here's another quick story. My birthday. My dad loved birthdays. He knew because they were godly and it meant life. He never forgot a birthday. But as when she became a secretary and as time went on, he started to just trust her to send birthday cards to the kids. He'd put the money in there. Usually, somewhere at times 100 or 50. But as he started running out of money and she started making more money, it would go down to like a 20. But he would always send a card and he'd always send the cash. Ultimately, when he put her in charge, I started getting cards with no cash. And he and I both agreed that she was likely taking the money out of the card and sending the card. Then she got to the point where she wouldn't even bother sending the card. I didn't get birthday cards from my dad the last few years. He remembered them. He called me up, wished me a happy birthday. I always remembered his birthday. But that's how, like my father said in Bingo City, people are sick about money. And if you saw Bingo City, which I thought was a fine work, and I'll transition into an update here because I probably only have about 15 minutes left, is that, you know, that was the cause behind Bingo City. And Joseph the whole time is defending her and thinking he's defending his family. When all the while and I know she was behind it because she was behind what I was doing with my dad. And my dad confided into me what happened. And he took the arrest, the felony. Again, remember what I said. Before he met her with lots, my mom, her nickname, he had nothing, she had nothing. And that's what a godly marriage does. They build and they grow together. He had home, automobile, sound mind, no felonious record, you know, close-knit family, 8 children. After with her, no children. She bore no children, divided the whole family, no house. She has a house, no cars. He had to take a felony, ruin his record, and his mind is brainwashed and totally beaten down. That's the after. How much more do you need to see to know that this person is not a godly, good person, was not ordained of God to be with my dad? How much more do you need to know that she was just using and abusing him? So let me get to the phone calls, and I'll get to the couple other things, because in Bingo City, there was a couple things that I mentioned, and again, I'll mention the stadium thing about Joseph. Well, I'll tell that story right now. So after that email she sends to them, you know, and I had altercations in a sense with Joey before. So one of the things was I wrote to his boss, this multimillionaire land developer guy, and I misquoted when I said they'll buy it for, you know, $1 billion. And I think that's what they were going to buy the property for the now Los Angeles Rams and the San Diego Rams, where Los Angeles Chargers, where Hollywood, the stadium is there, SoFi Stadium. But that was Hollywood Park. And I said, I think $500,000. You buy the property for $500 million. The Walmart family, you know, the owner, Stan Kroenke, they bought the property for $1 billion. You double your money like that within a year for $500,000. I'm sorry, $500 million. Of course I was right again. Joey, you're dumb, but you're doing this. Falsely accused me of 100 different things. But that's what that kid always does. He always did that. So anyway, so having that said that, let me get into a couple updates about, you know, what I put out in this Bingo City. And then 3 people who, and again, this Joey, Lisa, Amy, and this other person who just came forth. And let me think of what else. Okay, yeah, and some of the things about this Bingo City. And an update. So the Joey DiBello update. So according to the calls from my father, now I asked Joey to be my brother after my father died. I asked him to, you know, maybe do restitution in a sense. Like, Joe, all the money I lost, you know, I mean, my father couldn't get on the airplanes. I spent $1,000. She was doing this. The money you gave her, you know, kind of, she gave her the chance to, you know, she wouldn't have to go to this babysitting gig that my father said was just a ruse to see another man, and of course was just neglecting him all the time. That she could stay home that day and, you know, play around with the $5,000 I guess Joey sent, you know, and she could make sure my father didn't get on that plane. It cost me, I spent 3 life savings, most of that one poker winning, the 2 other ones I had before then, all, you know, in defense of my dad, just trying to give him peace and joy and love and life that he deserved in his final years. Okay, and Joey overrides it like in a poker game. You know, if you have a $10 hand and the guy has 10,000, you know, it's just a matter of time for his 10,000. You know, no matter how many hands you play, it will swoop up your little $10, and that's what happened to my money with Joseph. Not to mention, just like I said, money for storage, money, you know, for the possessions that were never, you know, like the jukebox and slot machine that my dad didn't want her to get, or any of the boys. He even wrote me a will, but again, she said no will, no life insurance, and I've already said this already. So with this Joseph, according to my dad, when the abuse had become physical, and my father actually feared for his life, and he had all this documentation. Now, my dad's got no reason to lie. Remember, I think I said that in the other message. If he is lying, it's really obviously a cry for help, okay? And he wants to leave. He should be allowed to leave. This isn't, you know, divorce isn't a crime. Leaving somebody isn't a crime, you know, but you know why. I've told you why, you know, for the money and for the, you know, for the the compensation that would be lost, and all the life insurance policies that she was filing the whole time, and all the belongings. But no, my dad not allowed to leave in peace. Okay, so anyway, so with regard to Joseph, according to my father, Joseph goes to this East Greenbush police chief. My father, I'm sorry, goes to this East Greenbush police chief. And the reason he goes is he's in fear for his life, because he also finds out, again, more evidence on this Donna murdering her husband. And I heard her. And remember I told you these 6 calls? I heard her threaten my dad. I heard her tell my dad to sit the F down, shut the F up. You're lucky I F and feed you. Would you kill for me, she said to him, like a cult leader. Would you kill? Don't you know who's evil? Your kids are all evil, aren't they? Yes, they are. Sit down, I'll give you a cookie. Say it again, say it again, say it again. Your kids are evil. My kids are evil. My kids are... Yeah, I would kill them for you. She told that to my dad, like a cult leader would. Effing him. Every 2 seconds. I'm like, she talks to you that way? Because when I call my dad, he goes, oh yeah, she used the F word all the time. That's why he ended up using it a little bit. I go, Dad, she talks to you that way? Then he told me, about the nose. And I told you, the bloody nose in one of the videos, she's standing in the background saying, don't show that video to Mark, you're going to get me in trouble. You're lying. And again, sometimes my dad's nose would bleed because she had him over-medicated on blood thinner. Your body's leaking blood. That's not a good thing. You don't need blood thinner. Okay? And then he's also taking a thing for his blood being thick. And again, phony drugs like Prevagen, the drugs the daughter gave him. I mean, Prevagen, I said, been dispunked by the FDA. All of that. So anyway, my father being threatened, and he says, and I hear this, I overhear this. Jeez, I'm losing my train of thought a little bit. Oh, so he goes down, and he always mistakenly called her Angela. Now, this woman, I guess her name is Elaine. And again, another, apparently, she wears the pants in her family, so to speak, because she doesn't even take the name of her Italian husband, who ironically is this Maiano guy. Now, I don't know where he stands, but he's good friends with Joey. So Joey, in his, again, ungodly misjudgment, somehow, because my father told me went twice, pleaded to this Angela, or Elaine, to do something. And instead of investigating, now again, I don't like reporting people to the police necessarily. I think they should apologize, do it apart from the police, apart from the judicial system. But Joey doesn't want to be a brother, and I'm not, going to do something or not do something based on if somebody, does something financial. That's, I don't blackmail people. I'm not extorting anybody. I mean, I'm not doing anything criminal. I'm really trying to protect my father and his family and my mother and the honor of them, because these other ones I'm completely estranged from all of them, because all of them are ungodly. I've never seen more ungodly people. You can falsely accuse me and you can hate me, and that's why they're sort of have this derangement syndrome toward me. You can do that to me, but you hurt my father. You let him be destroyed. He was my heart. I have a heart. I'm missing a heart because of that. I mean, it's like the kids say, oh, well, she was taking good care of him. Yeah, for $1 million, and she wasn't taking good care of him. And she cuts his leg off and then gives him broken crutches, and they're like, oh, see what a good person is? She's helping him. Yeah, but you forget the part where she cut his leg off. Because she gives him broken crutches doesn't mean she's helping him. So instead of investigating, this woman, according to my dad, says, as a favor to Joey, so apparently Joey's the chief of East Greenbush Police now. So this person says, I'll turn and look a blind eye, but just don't come back to East Greenbush. Don't come here. You're bothering us. Because, of course, this Donna is saying, oh, my father's lying. He's deranged. He's demented. He's got Alzheimer's. Why is he down here reporting this? Because my father said to Mark, you go and report it. But again, unless I can prove it, I won't talk about it too much. I mean, my dad, maybe he missed something. Maybe he was wrong with a detail. Maybe it didn't say murdered. It said mayhem or something. But all I know is he's crying in fear and he wants to leave. He should have been allowed to leave. Not East Greenbush, but her. My father helped to build East Greenbush. So that's the update with this Joey person. What choice do I have? And now, peripherally, there's more of a Republican godly administration coming into New York. And these people are having to face the music. These people like that Letitia James and that Alvin Bragg and the people that came, after President Trump. Obviously more godly, good person than Biden, President Biden. And of course, you see the corruption that guy was up to. And again, the woman, remember, the female goal spiritually is to get equality with the man so they can overpower the man and they can take on the godlike image, which is not the way God made things. That's why Satan came to the weaker sex, Eve, because she could easily be deceived. And you can mark my words on this, just like I predicted President Trump will win years before he won. We're at about the halfway point of this country. I guess this would be my only political thing. 250 years. The Roman Empire lasted 500 years. This country, there will no way last beyond 500 years. And it will most likely be destroyed when an antichrist of a female Democrat woman gets into the presidency, especially a female Democrat minority woman. Now, I don't purport that any woman should be president of the United States, because if you want to be the most powerful nation in the world, you have to have the most powerful type of president. And the number one type is a male. Period. End of story. That's the way God designed it. Father God, right? The disciples at the last summer, 12 men. Buddha, male. Islam, Abraham, Moses, Jesus even, male. Mormonism, Joseph Smith, male. Okay? The male figure, not females who are ungodly and usurping power and control over the man and getting the money, which is the tool that even gives them all the power. And that's what will destroy this country. So mark my words, and that's why God, and according, he told me, you saw it in the assassination attempt, got President Trump 47th, there, wherever that is, thank God, there you go, into office. And now with that change, things are going to change with these people that for years falsely accused me, especially the betrayers of my father. Not only this Donna, but his own children. And the reason these children are, have an issue with me is because I'm done turning the other cheek. Every one of them, I've done no sinfulness to any of them in 30 years. None. But now I don't turn the other cheek anymore. I have godly wrath and anger. I call out the truth. I call out sin. No, I told you, one apology in 30 years. Prideful, ungodly, these people. And when you take my father's heart, you took my heart. And now you left me basically in a way, and I told my daddy that I'd go down with him. I mean, I don't want to go down. I don't want to be suicidal. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be hurting all the time. But I have chronic pain, nightmares every day from what you people did to my father and me. Now, I don't know who's watching, and even strangers and friends have done this. I mean, so I'll transition into some of these other people in the last, let's say, 10 minutes. All right, so that's Joseph DiBello. I mean, apparently he runs, East Greenbush Police. Now, he can say, and this is just out of honor to my father and mother because he is a child of theirs, he can say he was duped and he didn't know. So hopefully he can escape, if I ever get to it, because I try not to do those things, he can escape justice if you want. And he can have some, be acquitted in a sense. But that chief of police, that's criminal. What that judge allowed is criminal. That's criminal. Forget the civil part where people would sue for millions. I just want what I lost back. And this Joe Lawrence falsely accused, now you're going to destroy my business. Really? And this Lisa DiBello. So let me get to that story. I told you the story. Lisa DiBello and the Price is Right got her on one. You can see me in the audience. And so at the end of her appearance, she offered nothing to my charity I was starting, but as a test to see how this charity would work helping others, because I had the idea, and now you see people doing it. Put the people in the audience, let them win prizes, and I did it with Victory Outreach. I did it with some other charities. Give them a $20,000 card. I didn't ask for anything from them. It's charity, true charity. I don't want a donation. I don't want a quid pro quo or kickback. I just want to keep the charity going. So now they do it. So at the end of the video of Lisa's appearance, I put this tag saying, donate to Ray of Hope was her charity. And I didn't know what she did with the car. I didn't know how she did something with her, girlfriend, Debbie, who I thought was a nice girl, but, she kind of betrayed me. And my daddy, I'm sure. And this Lisa doing her thing where she's, got to be the boss and power and control. And befriended Donna, I'm sure, because Donna, endorsed her lifestyle and all, whatever she was doing and duped her. And my father always thought, he's like, Mark, I don't want to live with Lisa. I want to live with you. But maybe Lisa would help him. But either way, so after the Price is Right and appearance, I put that tag on the back and said, well, send the money to me. So the reason I did that, if you wanted to donate additional to, Ray of Hope, because she got the $20,000 car, is so I can monitor what happened, because I knew if the money went right to Lisa, I wouldn't get it. I wouldn't get any knowledge of it or claim or the numbers, but 0 people contributed. So I said, well, maybe that's not the best thing to put on the video. So this Lisa calls and threatens me with a lawyer and arrest if I don't take down that video, freely helping her. and this charity, because now she's in some court thing over the charity. She didn't do it the right way, or she did it illegally, and she's suing her town, asking for, I guess, which I didn't know all the details of the case. She apparently won. Gee, she got all this money from the town, gets fired for cause, which means I think she deserved it, but claims she didn't and goes through the court system. She might have learned all that from Donna, for all I know. Next thing you know, she's getting 350 grand or something, which I didn't realize until like a year ago. And my father even had a letter from my father, like, chiding Lisa. He's like, geez, Mark, this Lisa can do what she wants now. She doesn't give a damn. She's got 300 grand. And telling me, Mark, you're going to ruin my court case. Really? Because this little rinky-dink blog named Progressive Charleston posts a thing, and it drags me into the mud, saying the DiBello family and Mark is up to this and that. I was up to what? I'm the victim. She's ruining my worldwide reputation because she's doing whatever she's doing in Charleston with her hair flipping out. But it points the finger at me. Now, I let it slide. I'm like, well, I can't worry. I don't want to worry about this little pedunk little thing. But you look at my credentials on Google, type my name, my charity, everything. That's the one negative that shows up. There are others, and I got those erased because they shouldn't have been up there. But that's the one up there. She's worried about how I'm affecting her court case. Evil. Pure evil. And that's just one story with her. So now I wrote this Progressive Charleston after, Will, I think the guy's name, Cole or Will something, who begins with a C. Colton, I forget his last name. And I said, can you please take this down? I've got more, you want dirt on Lisa, you can put that up. But take my name, take it down. So he took the post down. Now Lisa probably doesn't know that. I'll never get credit for it. Helps her to look better. But they're still pointing fingers at me. I'm the criminal for wanting to free and liberate my dad and save myself and just try to live and not be in jail and not be homeless and all the, you guys are all thriving. You didn't love my dad. You didn't defend him the way you were supposed to. You betrayed him. All of you did. Now here's another one, and I guess I'll wrap it up with this. Speaking of that. Oh, well, Amy I'll get to. I posted something about her. I mean, Amy's that boss type, managerial type, got to be the leader, her God is her jobs. I mean, I know what all their gods are. I know my evil, what it is. I know who my real God is. Joey, like I said, money, power, control. Lisa, I'll go through all of them sometime. But here's what happened more recently. And I guess it relates to Bingo City as sort of an update. So I get I knew people were going to, and again, it's only got 150 or something views. I wished it got 1,000, 1 million. I mean, I'm preaching. I'm telling the truth. I'm exonerating my dad for a felony he had to take, protecting people. And again, Joseph thinks he's protecting the family. No, he's not, Joe. No, you're not. If anybody ever gets this message, I don't know, family related or friends. So part of the story is this. My father's struggling and suffering, okay? And I've got everybody, it's the government against me and him. It's her, the government. It's everybody I talk to. Even my own lawyer, didn't want to defend me because he reads I'm worth $8 million on this net worth website. Really? $8 million? I've never had more than 80 grand, I don't think, ever. $8 million? I sent him my response. He says the envelope, to the petition, to the protection order, like a 30-page response. I wrote hours. He said the envelope arrived, but nothing in it. This guy was incompetent and corrupt. And then, so he's a nightmare. And then, of course, I told you, it's just like nothing I've ever seen before. And the people behind it. So I post Bingo City. My dad says to me, again, multiple things, tells me the truth of all these stories. Bingo City, his life with my mom, false accusations that he had to go through with, her family over that. But the Burek family, they had this family reunion. It was a beautiful thing. My grandmother Burek, great woman. In fact, all the Burek women until recently when they had to make a decision are all good women, godly women, and even the in-law women. And the men were good men, the Burek men, for the most part. Now, the next generation, the children, not so much. Not all of them. Certainly, there's always one bad apple in the group. And the DiBello, same thing with my uncles and same thing with my aunts. But that generation's gone. There's two left, two aunts, my Aunt Mary and my Aunt Helen. Now, my Aunt Helen was a second mother to me, but she got under pressure from all of them saying, you can't be Mark's, second mother. He's too bad. He's too dangerous. He's too much a problem. I mean, her family scorned and ridiculed me for years, all of them. And then even my own family, my father's own family in defense of Helen, and she had to side with the kids and didn't, because she promised Dorothy she'd protect the family. But the family started with my father. How about protecting him and then me? How about protecting me? And again, a lot of the time, 90% of the time she did. But in recent years, again, and I can't blame her totally. She's an elderly woman. They're both over 100. But my Aunt Mary now I still think is saintly. But even everybody, including me, I even took responsibility for how I might have dropped the ball in saving my daddy's life. He deserved to be alive, and Father's Day upcoming, he definitely deserved to be alive. So let me get to the story in closing here, I guess, until I wrap it up about this Burek. So they had this family gathering, and they had a Facebook page that went with it. So as I'm publishing this documentary, truthful, investigative, journalistic, if you want to say it, Bingo City, okay, Ted Burek comes up, my Uncle Ted. And he was good friends with Joe, and he was, some of the time honored my father, but other times he was disrespectful. He teased him, called him Agony instead of Anthony, his nickname, which partially was deserved because my father was a hypochondriac. But he was just, he'd take his little undermining shots. He was a little jealous of my father because Ted didn't, he's just kind of a normal guy. And he didn't have much success until he founded the cemetery. But he was, he's a godly man. He overwatched the cemetery. So you got to, appreciate somebody that does that. And I never had any real issues with my Uncle Ted. I always tried to respect him and honor him, and again, but more importantly, my father, he was good to all the Bureks, even their children. He gave many of them jobs. He didn't have to give them. Helen worked for my father. A lot of them did. Her son Steve, deceased, the children, a lot of them worked for my father. A lot of them. My father let him up, they came up to his house. They partied. He gave things. He always spoke well of them. He would have contributed. He was good to Dorothy. Okay? And my mom, again, a saint of a woman. But my father was good to every single Burek. So when they did Bingo City, it was kind of mutually beneficial, I guess. He let Ted be a part of it. So Ted's a part of it. So I write, I document what my father told me, what I read in his book, my father's book, and what I knew of the situation. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so I'm going to have to wrap that up because there's some message here about some issue. So all right, so for fear that this is going to get cut short. So I write this. Now, again, as I said with this Burek family picnic, I wanted to take my dad to try to get support, and I posted something about it on the Burek family page. Will any Burek step up to do something to help my dad and me? Help me to defend my dad? And I posted that we can't go to the party because there's too many issues, and this Donna can't go. She doesn't want to take my father where he's going to get support. She's not going to take him there. And my dad was afraid. He's like, Mark, I don't think they like me. I don't know. I can't bring her. I'm stuck with her. I'm like, Dad, come with me. But I don't think he ever got to go to one where I thought he could have been revered because there's basically 3 left in that family. No, there's 5. And I pray for him every day still for 30 years. Mary, Helen, Mo, and Carol. Ted's wife, Paul's wife, Helen, Mary, and my dad, an in-law. Those 5. And I post that on Facebook. But I get slammed that I'm not talking about horseshoes and joy at the party. I'm putting up something too divisive. I'm venting anger from 3 people who proctored that website. Lisa, this Nancy Troxel, and I guess, I didn't know the person, Tiffany or something, Tim Burek's wife. Okay? Now these people are supposed to be running this Holy Sepulchre Cemetery. They're supposed to, have a media outlet for that page. And it's not the biggest deal, but it's a conduit. It was a cry for help, asking, can somebody do something? And this Tiffany Burek or whomever takes complete offense to it. And then Nancy and this other one and Lisa had me banned from that page. So, of course, I can't go see anybody myself. People who I thought were brothers to me in a sense. Some good people at the time, but they were all kind of turned. I haven't heard any of them reach out to say, Mark, I'm sorry for your loss. There were good ones, and I'll name them. Brian, Jeff, 2 Jeffs, Bobby. I mean, people that I even thought respected my dad would want to help. But these women, no. They got to put up that gatekeeper. So this Nancy Troxel has, takes offense to that. Now, I only had one other run-in with this Nancy that I remember. And that is, I posted something about Helen Burek. And I posted all these good things. I posted eulogies. I didn't really need to do it. I didn't really want to do it. I gave the person the benefit of the doubt and all of them. And I write something about Helen that 3 people start criticizing me for, that I'm slamming or berating my Aunt Helen, which I would never even do in public. Certainly not back then. And Nancy, this Nancy Troxell's one of them, I forget the third. The second one was Boo Brenda Lady, a very good woman. So when I address it at this family picnic, Boo comes up to me and apologizes. Mark, I misread it. I understand. I'm sorry. And this Boo's been victimized. Attacked by Satan through drugs, which I understand. But a good woman, always a good woman to me. But the tough, the dominant ones in that family, the dominant female, and there's one in everyone, this Nancy Troxell, no apology. Now, she's probably loving that she's hearing her name. No apology, okay? So, and then all that stuff with this Bureau family page, and then disallows other pages, that I know people, and myself represent, like my father and mother. So there's no commentary on the Bureau page. But again, pleading for my help, father's help, apparently that's not happy talk and horseshoe talk. So I post Bingo City, and this Nancy Troxell, first words out of, you better you better do this or do that, or I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go, no, may I, sorry, please, no. Condemnation, wearing the pants in the family type. Boss, that kind of, Kitty, don't get on here. Sorry, Kitty. Now, that's another run-in with this person. Now, here's another example. I write the cemetery to get a quote on a stone for when I pass, with all the hell that I'm going through in my life very much at stake, whether it's through depression and suicide or just being murdered by somebody or attacked. And now I hear that some guy named Ken Troxell is running, my Uncle Teddy's business. Not even a reply, not even a quote. Really? Somebody's last home and resting spot? You don't get a quote? I had another email sent. Sure enough, that person got a quote. But me, I don't get a quote. Okay? That's what I got to tolerate from that person. I don't know what she's angry about and what she's complaining about. There's nothing criminal in what I put. Nothing untrue. But her feathers are ruffled, as my dad used to say. Now, I'm not angry about it. It's an annoyance. It's just pouring more salt in the wound and just, go to hell. And I wrote that. Not her, the spirit in her. I'm going to defend my father. Your father, I defended him. I didn't say anything negative about her father, and I probably could have. He profited from that Bingo City, which again went under, where much of the money, my father pretty much told me where it went. But I don't know the legalistic ways of how I can say who got that money. And here's Joey, like I said, defending his Uncle Ted and defending his full family. And my father's one getting thrown under the bus. And then so am I. And I wasn't even involved in it. I knew to stay away. But that's this, and I wrote it, that's that Nancy Troxell. Okay, Kitty, sorry. All right, now last thing. Because I went over. And I'm getting, again, let me tell you something. It's bad enough being in chronic emotional and heartache and pain, but here's what's even tougher. When I have to do these things, of course, it takes me away from my more godly work, but this is like me having to confront the devil and go to hell. It burns. Do you understand? I gotta fire, knock off the slings and arrows of the devil, dealing with these hellish, devilish people to try to save lives. God is a God of love and life. There's nothing more godly than my daddy's life. And now mine, certainly in my world, certainly in the world of my parents, and it's supposed to be the leader of the other ones who betrayed him, and even the other extended family. All my father and all my mother did for that family? No. Even family and friends. So now here's what the most recent development. And whoever wrote this, they might get their joy in getting, mentioned. But here's what I get in the mail recently. Okay? Just a few days ago, and maybe because it happened recently, I get an envelope. Now, the last time I got an envelope, I was at the racetrack. I went to meet my dad after months of not seeing him, and I said, Dad, if you need an Uber, I'll have an Uber bring you up. She was dying to see me. I was dying to see him. He said, no, Donna, is going to give him a ride. Now, this Donna would have him take the bus or get an Uber. Doesn't want to give him a ride. But for some reason, she wants to give him a ride this time. She gives him a ride. I meet him at the racetrack. We pray like we do first before we see each other. We kiss each other on the lips. We cry. We're happy to see each other. Moments later, some guy comes up to me. Are you Mark DiBello? He ran up to me. I turned quick. Yes. I thought, I already put this on video. I thought, I don't know, why does he want to talk to me? Would you want an autograph or something? Not that I'm famous, but I don't know. I'm from the town. I don't know what he wants. Puts this yellow envelope. It's misspelled, DiBello. The only people who misspell my name, my father's name, are the government and this Donna. Because lowercase b. My father, I had my Father's Day card, 5 years old. I know how to spell my name, capital D, no, capital D, small I, capital B as in boy, E-L-L-O. So he shoves it under my thing. I don't, no, actually, you know what? He said, Mark DiBello, are you Mark DiBello? I didn't even have time to say, I can't remember if I said yes. I think I did. But he shoves it under my arm and runs away. Now, according to the law, I guess later, he's supposed to tell me why he's giving it to me, or it's not valid. He never said anything. This coward runs away. I didn't know who it was from. Now, according to this lawyer that I had, he says I'm supposed to accept the envelope. This is how all my problems arose. If I took the envelope, really, I'm supposed to take every yellow envelope that comes to me? You what? Is that like going to the mail? You're supposed to open every scam from like whatever? I don't know that that's how the government, I guess, serves orders. I don't get protection orders against me. I'm not stalking people. I'm not harassing people. I don't know to open that envelope if that's what it was, which apparently I guess it was. But you know what happened? You know what it was? This Donna, who thoughtfully took my father to the racetrack, and my father said the same thing. You can see the video. She used him to set me up. She told this, whatever you call him, server, Mark will be at the father of this track, serve him then. Really? Taking my father for a father-son day to the track where I spent $280, a lot of money to me, on special tickets, and she goes through all that to make sure that I'm get a protection order so I can't be with my dad, so my dad can't leave her, can't go where he wants, live where he wants. I had a place for us with, well, I won't get into the whole story, but the Mr. Roddy Valente, multimillionaire, property over near my Aunt Helen's, 1 Anthony Lane. You believe that? My dad could have lived there. No, can't have that happen. He's got to stay with me until he dies because I don't want to lose the benefits. So, sorry. So wrapping it up, so I get this envelope. Sorry for the focus. And whatever, I might have moved the camera a little bit. Okay, well, either way, this isn't, this isn't professional. I apologize. So I get this envelope. Now, here's the first thing I can tell you about this envelope. It comes with my father's old address. So the person is a liar. There's nobody up there at that property that I know of, but you can find that address online. So the person is a liar, and they're a coward. They don't put their own name on there. They send an envelope. Liar and coward. I know it's from the devil. Got to be. I mean, that's not a friend would, or helper would put their name. And it comes in, I feel like a book or something in there. I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's somebody nice. Somebody, sent me something good for a change, supported my dad and me or my mom and me. No. I open it up. There's this book, Raccoon, and some paperwork. So the last time I saw Raccoon was when, and I'm not going to probably put inserts on this, but you can see the picture, was when this Donna wanted the raccoon under the pool house at my father's property captured and killed. Because for my dad, he loved animals. See, he had horses up there. He had our dogs, Shimmy, Coco, Nuggy. Nugget he loved, Sweetie the cat. I mean, my mom, same way, loved animals. My dad adored animals. And not only did they help and bless, like as a service animal, so to speak, but they're just, my father had a heart for animals. And if you can't love animals, you can't love people. Now, this person with my father, she didn't like animals. My father said and with her, his whole time, he could never have one. I remember there's a video of deer. My father loved the deer, put a salt lick out for them. They're hopping out and playing and prancing on the, in the corral. And he tries to tell her, she's oblivious. Whatever, I don't care. Didn't care about animals. And I told you, she's the only person I ever saw kick little Nugget. The only other person I ever saw be mean to Nugget was Joseph in a video. Now, I know he repented and changed his ways because he had a dog of his own apparently he loved, and he likes horses, loves horses, so his heart's tendered a little bit. But I remember him, giving Nugget a hard time, berating him, get away from me, you stupid dog, get out of the car. I mean, he's a little Nugget. He's a little beautiful little dog, But anyway, so this Donna kicks that dog and wants the raccoon captured, and they killed, she'd kill the animal. My father said, Mark, I can't have animals, so she'll kill him. And, of course, they cost money. She's not going to spend money on an animal. I mean, that's just, and my poor father, no animals in his life for 30 years. So I don't know if that's what this book about the raccoon meant, but thank God I saved that little raccoon's life. And perfectly moved on from that property, or he's back living there now. I don't know, because the property, I don't know what's going on up there, but that's what this person sends me. Now, I look inside the envelope, and I know the devil is telling me, Mark, read a couple lines. So I'm not going to read that. So it's probably a woman. It could be this Nancy. It could be this Lisa. I mean, whatever. I saw about 3 or 4 things in it. One says, you know, the opening line is, "You're a loser, liar, scumbag, whatever. You know, you've made people angry." Really? Well, I don't care who I made angry. You know why? I care about God. Because you know what? I have a saying. A couple of sayings. One I already said. You don't love somebody till the day they die. You love them till the day you die. And the other one is, God holds the keys to the kingdom. I care what my Heavenly Father thinks. If I make people angry, whatever. You know, God forgive them. They're angry because they're getting their sins called out on them. But my God is not angry with me. My God loves me. My God, you know, if I get slain or martyred or thrown in prison like the disciples before me, like my daddy crucified in a sense, then God bless, so be it. But I don't know this person. They're not they're not mentoring me on anything. Okay? So you want to be angry? Well, you repent before God and you tell my Father in heaven and you tell my mom, they can't hear you, but tell God to tell him you're sorry or apologize to me. You want to be angry? Go ahead, be angry. I care about God. He's the only one I have to please on this earth. He's the only one with the keys to eternity. And if I post stuff and I pack up for my, eternal life, then I post, and God bless. I'm honoring the video image. I'm keeping my daddy's spirit alive. I'm posting about him, my mommy, myself, who doesn't have children. If I have children, please come forward. I'll give you everything I have. I'd love to hear I have a child. But anyway, so that was one line. The other line I read was that I'm an embarrassment to my high school because I thought maybe I should, be in their Hall of Fame, which, if you based it on certain things, I think I should be in there. It was something I thought I really wanted from my mom and dad and their entire family as a group. But no, they wanted to get Joey in. This one person, George, he just wanted to, kiss butt, so to speak, to Joey. I actually wrote the thing, helped him, congratulate Joey. He doesn't say thank you. He doesn't. I sent him gifts for 30 years. He never says thank you. This guy's got so much pride. It's ridiculous. And I can't apologize, too much pride, whatever. But he did, like I said, he helped me 4 or 5 times. So that's the 10% of the time he helped me. But anyway, so, I'm not in my high school Hall of Fame. Let's see. And I don't want to toot my own horn. I'm the only person I know in my high school that got a scholarship to the national championship team at the University of Miami, let alone the University of Miami. I played with, even though I was a scrub and didn't get any time, I played with all these guys, Hall of Famers, first-round draft picks, Heisman Trophy winners. That's pretty good. I went to Hollywood. Geez, I've been on 40 reality shows, which is like the world record. I don't know anybody who's been on one, maybe from my high school, I don't know. And maybe my claim to fame, if you will, even though, and I did it on AI. I'm like, what are the odds of one person winning a car? I know it's not the biggest thing, but thank God I am still the only person. I'll try to get centered here. The only person, not just in television history, but my daddy loved games, and my mom was my biggest cheerleader, so I'm proud of this moment, is, people want to go on cars, hundreds of thousands a year, audition, try to win cars on the Wheel of Fortune, Price is Right. 2 longest running, most popular game shows in American history. I'm the only person ever to win cars on both. Now, AI says the odds of that are 330,000 to 1, but I tend to disagree with that because nobody in human history has done that. I mean, I'd rather have saved the planet, trying to win an Academy Award and a Super Bowl trophy. I'm still trying, but there's some cultural issues I got to get over there. And again, I'm not perfect. But again, to say, and what they said is I'm an embarrassment to my school and my arrest record. Really? Let's see my arrest record. I was arrested one time a couple times when I was a drunk. I said I was sorry for that. I got off one time. One time I spent a day in jail. This judge, Chris Hummel, put me in jail, and he kind of betrayed my dad a little bit along the way. Terrible. He said, I don't want to tell you the whole story. And then another time I got off. I won the case. But I turned myself in either on Christmas or my birthday because I wanted to discipline myself. I'm like, if I can win it in court, and I know I did it, it's not worth it. Yeah, I did what I did what they accused me of. I plowed into some cars. I was drinking, and I wanted to retrieve my Fiesta Bowl watch. I did it, and I told the judge. He was like, I went to the bathroom. He's like, Mark, you were acquitted. I go, I know, Judge, but you know what? Yeah, so I'm in the bathroom after the case. He goes, you fought this trial hard. You'd make a good lawyer. I go, thanks, Judge, but you know what? I did it. I deserve it. I just wanted to, I was just trying to protect myself, but I need to rehab myself. And I did. I spent, 10 days in jail. But anyway, so, and haven't drank, and like I said, done drugs 30 years since. So you find somebody, that's watching this or that's in that high school Hall of Fame that doesn't drink, doesn't eat animals, doesn't do drugs, doesn't take aspirin, doesn't smoke cigarettes, defends the life of his father, preaches, tries to help the high school. Actually, because of and some of the other guys I work with having that summer league, their most recent AD got in there. But I know why I'm not in that Hall of Fame. I mean, I know the politics behind this club, that it's a club that runs it, and the women that are there, and woke and Democrat and all that. And I'm, if I just had a regular job at the bank and played lacrosse, I'd probably be in. But anyway, so I don't have the answer to that, but I just did. But so that was one line I read, and it hurts. It's kind of pouring salt in the wound. I really wanted to be in there for my mom and dad, and I really wanted to be in there this year because my coach George Zerno, who I love and respect, actually became very spiritual recently, and he shared that with me, and he was the one who nominated me. I'm sorry, I know this is annoying, and I know I went way over. Heck, I'm going to leave it. I don't care. And then the last note, I guess, on this is that it was signed sincerely XXS with like a smiley face and read something. I don't know if it's blood, ink, whatever. Really, sincerely XXS. I'm like, you're nothing. You're a loser, whoever wrote me. You're evil. And I could probably have this tracked because I'm sure there's a lot of criminal threats and things in there. So I could probably have this tracked, but maybe I will and find out who sent it. But I'm not going to listen to you. You're not. You're evil. You're evil. You're a coward, and you're a liar. So I'm not going to listen to that. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff I have to get. And anyway, so those I think are the updates for now. I'm sorry I went over this message. Like I said, I just want to preach. I just want to, eulogize and still defend and honor my mom and dad and try to keep myself alive and, keep with Kitty Boy. So, anyways, I guess that's the update on my dad's life. And I won't say anything before Father's Day, but a blessed, I don't know. I just pray, I just talk to God and through the nightmares and ask him to tell my daddy I said Happy Father's Day. I just want to tell my daddy I said Happy Father's Day.